Hello, everyone. Welcome to Strategic Business Plans 101. My name is Mark Dolfini. You're in Strategic Boardroom, and you are about to learn a lot of different things around business plans, specifically about creating a strategic business plan for your business, for maybe a business idea that you have, or maybe you've got an existing business that you want to expand or grow. There's lots of reasons to have a business plan, and we're going to get to those reasons today. So I've got a few of you already burning up the chat. I love that, by the way. I love that you guys are being engaged. Got Marcus. Hello, Marcus. Good afternoon. It's good to see you. Please let me know where you're at and what line of work that you're in or what business idea that you have. Maria saying good afternoon. Well, good afternoon to you. And Maria, I'm seeing your question. I'm not going to put that up on the screen just because you have that link and I don't want to jam you up. I'm going to email you. And when I drop you the email, we can, if you can just send that form over, well, we can fill that out for you because you're asking for attendance and I can do that for you. So thank you so much. I don't want to put that form, the link up there and then spammers and you get it. But yes, I can fill that out for you. That's not a problem. Aisha, hello. Yeah, waiting on the stream to start. Sorry, I was a minute or two late. Every single time I just about get ready to hit the button, I have to do a bunch of checks, and sometimes if I think there's going to be any likelihood that this isn't going to work well, I would rather reboot and start up because I've had it a couple times where it wouldn't work right. So anyway, that's just the nature of working with other software that is not yours, right? So StreamYard's been fantastic. I can't dog on them. They've been good. All right. So those of you who are joining, if you're joining, I see a few people joining in from YouTube and no one from LinkedIn today. That's all right. And a couple people from Facebook. Hello. And those of you who signed up through Eventbrite, those of you who signed up, please just let me know where you're at and where, what kind of business idea that you have. You've started a small solo law firm. So you are the chief cook and bottle washer. I understand about being a solopreneur. So welcome. Maria, it is my pleasure to help you out with that. And Marcus, nice to see you again, Mark, from Ohio, revisiting old interest in 3D modeling. Oh, yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Good to see you again as well, Marcus. Is it me or has nothing started yet? Nope. It's you. We are definitely started. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, reboot. Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes you have to come back out and come back in because I don't have any control over the back end on that sort of thing. But anyway, very good to see you. We are going to get started right now. We have a lot to cover in a very short period of time. And this is going to be about establishing a strategy for your business. Not just for your business, though, but for your business in your life. Because those of you who've ever been through the Viper framework, you're on now, Aisha. Okay, very good. Good to see you. Glad that you could join us. So if you have been through this before or something similar, don't jump off because I'm starting to put these through a similar lens, but I apply that lens in a different way. So there's someone who had been on other, I don't remember what it was, which call that they were on. I think it might have been Marketing Magic. And the beginning looked very similar. And they're like, oh, yeah, I've seen this one before. See you later, Mark. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Don't jump off yet because I'm taking that same lens of the Viper framework, the vision, infrastructure, process, execution, reporting. Relax. If this is your first time, I will walk you all through that. I promise you by the end, you're going to be a pro at Viper. The thing is, I was applying that through a marketing lens, and that's the same lens that I use through the 4 core functions of business, through lead generation, through sales, through operations and fulfillment, and through accounting. So those 4 core functions, which again, relax, we're going to hit it all. Okay, so I just want to let you know that this is the framework that we're going to be using to apply through Business Plans 101. Because, by the way, when I put the Viper framework together, I was putting it together making sure that it's going to be a lens that can be applied through lots of different avenues. This is like my dissertation. This is like my capstone project. Viper is extremely well thought through, and you will see that today. So here's the question I have for you. Have you ever thought, man, I've got all these ideas, but I have no idea how to implement them? Say yes in the comments or say, heck yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Heck, every time I get out of the shower, I got a new idea. You know what I'm talking about? So if that's something that you can relate to, I just want to let you know that you're not alone, number one. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a perfectly beautiful visionary, and you just need ideas on how to cement some of these things together. Apply some glue to this, and that's what Business Plans 101 is going to do. This is about being strategic and about setting this up from top down. That's why I'm using the lens of the Viper framework to be strategic, to apply it from top down. So this will make more sense here in a little bit as it gets applied. So again, who is this for? This is for either a new business, a new idea, or it could be a business that's been up and running for a while. And you might be thinking, well, I can see the significance of putting it together for a new business, because it obviously helps get things sorted out in terms of doing a market analysis, doing a sensitivity analysis, doing a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, things along those lines, which you would normally see in any normal business plan. And that does help get your thoughts put together. And it's interesting that I saw a video that Elon Musk never really saw a value of putting together a business plan. Well, yeah, when you've got an IQ of like 190, maybe you don't. But for us mere mortals, it probably makes a lot of sense. I know for me, it helps me keep things straight. And it also helps keep me from wandering. So for those of you who have a new business idea, take the time to actually put pen to paper and don't just rely on what's in your head, because your what's in your head will betray you. But especially if you are, this is also applicable if you have an established business. So if you have an established business and you're trying to grow your business, maybe you're trying to take it in a new strategic direction. Maybe you're trying to apply it in a new way. You're trying to break into a new market, launch a new product, launch a new service, vertically integrate into an existing market, expand market share, whatever. If you're planning on doing a significant change in your business, especially around products, services, or avatar meaning your target customer, your target audience, I would argue that a business plan does make sense, especially a strategic business plan. This will make, again, more sense as we get into it. This is also for people who maybe are, again, looking to grow, expand, or scale. Growth, expansion, and scale are not all the same things. So I just want you to understand that if you're looking to basically make your business bigger in any particular way, I don't care if it's growth, expansion, or scale, whatever that is, I want to make sure that you are ready for that, and having a strategic business plan will do that for you. Or maybe you just want to feel like you have better control. Does anybody have a business and just like, man, you sit down at your desk and you don't even know what to start on first because you have so many things to do? I've been there. I know exactly what that feels like, and it feels very overwhelming. So look, we're going to be taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. So that's what the Viper framework does. Does a business plan, any business plan, really address you and your personal life? No, it does not. That's outside the scope and generally outside the limitation of a business plan. However, we can handle hard things, right? We can do complex things because we can handle multiple things at a time. The reality is we are going to be talking a little bit, just a teeny bit, about setting up your life, because we want to build a business that delivers us a better life, right? You don't want just to create a high-paying job for yourself, because that's generally the worst type of job, because it's a job you're going to be working for a maniac. Ask me how I know. So what I'm saying here is that you want to create a business that is maybe even potentially saleable. Maybe a business that can run without you, or a business that can run without you showing up every day. And that doesn't mean that you still can't work. I love what I do. I love doing what I do right here. But I am transitioning a little bit into doing more stuff, more remote. And I'm not doing as many one-to-one sessions as I used to. And that's been by design. I've kind of been letting that attrition out, and I'm letting other people come into different group trainings or different classroom types trainings. I like doing both, but I am changing a little bit just because there's a different season in our life. Our daughter's 3.5, and she likes spending a lot of time with mom and dad, and we want to travel a little bit more. So doing a lot of one-to-one sessions was not conducive to that. So again, that's why having a business that delivers your personal vision, that's what we're looking for. So we'll get to that here in just a second. So the Time Wealthy Advantage, this is the book over my right shoulder. It's also the book on the screen. If you'd like a copy of this, I'm not here to push or promote the book. You can, if you're outside the US, that's probably your best bet to get a copy of it, is order it on Amazon. If you're inside the US and you'd like a signed copy, you can go to strategicboardroom.com, and I'll go ahead and put the banner up at the bottom. You go to strategicboardroom.com and you can order a copy right on the front page. It's pretty easy to find. We'll just put it that way. So that's probably your best bet to get it. So these are all the books that I wrote and published last year, The Time Wealthy Advantage, plus those 4 different guides. And all of these things specifically, the reason I'm putting these up here, not to impress you, but to impress upon you that what it's like to have control of your calendar. Because I'm the author of 8 different books. I'm currently in a PhD program for pursuing my my PhD in organizational psychology. My bride and I, we have a 3.5-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 20-year-old. We've got a lot going on, right? But I've also got several businesses that are running. I've got 2 other businesses that run, and they're both related to real estate. Most of my money comes from that. I do have a business here, this strategy, the strategic coaching business, which I really love. And I've employed hundreds of employees over the years. I've hired good ones. I've hired bad ones. I've hired others. I'm like, oh my gosh, how in the world did I deserve these people? I've done it well, and I've done it bad. And I've been broke, and then I've been wondering how I'm going to make payroll every other week. And then I've also had significant amount of financial success. But I have something much more precious than all of that stuff, and that is my time. And that is, look, the point is here, and this is why I want you to start thinking about this from the context and from the aspect of looking at creating this business and having this business plan that's not just going to give you piles of money, but it's also going to give you a lot of control over your calendar. Because there's no point in making piles of money if it takes you all of your waking hours to do it. And this is the what we got to do is go to the jumpy place, right? The most exhausting place on the planet is one of those trampoline parks. And when you're a 3.5-year-old, it is literally the most fun place ever, because you get to watch your 53-year-old father almost have a heart attack as he's jumped up and down for like 25 straight minutes, which was fun, but I was absolutely exhausted. And I did that. Well, today's Wednesday, so I did it 2 days ago, right? I did that over lunch for an hour and a half, by the way. That was exhausting, but it was a lot of fun. We did have a great time. Or we can have picnic time, or we can go to the game place. Yes, I know that's a bowling alley, but she only cares about the arcade, right? But the point is, we can do these things whenever we want, because I have direct control over my calendar. And for those of you, what I don't want you to do is I don't want you to get to a point where you're feeling unfulfilled in your business and you're completely burned out by your business. You're uninspired. You can't think of your next actions because you haven't been strategic, because you haven't put together a strategic business plan. Or maybe you're in business with someone else, and and I see this with a lot of couples that are in business together, that are husband and wife, and if they're not fighting about money, if they do every now and again go on a date night, the date night turns into a board meeting, because all they do is talk about the business. So all I'm saying is, rather than spending the night talking about the business, you should be spending that time obviously reconnecting with your spouse. So let me ask you, does any of that sound familiar? Okay. I mean, again, this is not judgment, it's confession. That's what my life used to look like. So this is the crux of Strategic Business Plans 101. So let's get to the agenda. We're going to talk about the systems part of the business, which is absolutely critical. You have to have systems for every business, and that's going to be part in the strategic business plan. By the way, for those of you who are signed up through Eventbrite, yes, you will be getting a replay, number one. And number two, for anybody that wants to stay on the call, you will be getting, I will show you how to get an actual download straight to your email, straight to your computer. You don't even have to enter in an email, how to download a business plan template for your business. I'll show you how to get that at the end. So there's a systems component to the business. And then of course there is a psychology component to business, and you have to have both legs. You have to have systems, you have to have psychology. And if you don't address both, your business is not going to be highly functional. The last component we're going to talk about are the 4 core functions of business. And it has to be true in every single business. Every business has these 4 core functions, and that's just the way it goes. Because if you don't have all 4 of these functions, it's basically a side hustle at best. So when we're talking about the business approach, by the way, if you guys have any questions along the way, go ahead and put them in the comments, because I will have some natural breakpoints here. Number one, so I can answer your questions. And number two, so I don't die and I'm able to drink some water. So if you have any questions, just make sure the questions are really specific, because if you say like, what does that mean? And I talk for another 4 minutes and then I come back to the question, I'm not going to know which of that you mean. So make sure you're really specific in your question. All right, so let's get to the business approach. Again, we're talking about both systems and psychology. So let's start with the systems first. Like I said, everything related to the systems side of the business is in the time wealthy advantage. And this is, if you're looking for a much deeper dive in the Viper methodology, that's going to be in that book. And it's like a 280 page book. So there's a lot in there, but it's really going to help give you a framework that you can apply for any type of business that you want to put together. So the Viper method is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. And it takes a very top-down approach to how you're going to look at both your life and your business. Your life as a business owner, your life as a mother, your life as a father, your life as a friend, parent, daughter, whatever. It's going to look at that first and foremost, and that framework. So therefore, that vision piece, it has two components. That vision piece has a personal vision component and it has a business vision component. So let's look at personal vision first. Again, the personal vision, this doesn't have any spot in a strategic business plan template. And it really shouldn't, because it generally, the constituents that are going to be looking at the business plan might be bankers or investors, or could be your local town board if you've got a business idea or whatever. They're not going to care about your personal vision, right? Now, they might care if that personal vision has something to do with them, but again, not all personal visions are, and the personal vision should be personal to you. So again, you start thinking about what you want your relationship with your spouse to look like. What do you want your relationship with your children to look like? What do you want your relationships with your friends to look like? With your faith, with your community, with your wellness, all these different aspects of your life. So when you start looking at this, now you're going to, the primary question that personal vision asks is, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go, Aisha? Where do you want to go, Marcus? John, where do you want to go? Jacob, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go in your life, Maria? And I want you to start thinking about this from that perspective, to say, okay, cool. If your job description wasn't a life description, if you woke up with plenty of money tomorrow morning where you never had to worry about income generation again, what would your life look like day to day? Fine, go out and buy the crap that you want to buy and take the trips that you want to take. But at the end of the day, you're going to wind up home. At the end of the day, you're going to wind up in your house. And then you're going to wake up, put your feet on the floor and say, okay, what do I do today? Because the problem is most business owners have the same series of Wednesdays over and over and over again. And they create this prison for themselves that they can never extract themselves from. That's what we're trying to avoid up front. I don't want you having that same thing where you've got so much money, you're like, oh my gosh, I got so much money, I can't, I couldn't spend it all. Okay. But if you don't have a personal vision of what you want your life to look for, you're going to be equally as miserable. And I will tell you this, I'll make this quick point, and then I'll tell you this other thing. But the business vision is like, okay, so once the personal vision is defined, the business vision is going to say, cool, great, how are we going to get there? So you reverse engineer this business that's going to deliver this personal vision for you. That's the whole point of being strategic. You're starting with the end in mind. And it's interesting, the point I was going to make here about where it is you want to go and not having this personal vision first. I've sat in, I don't even know, dozens at this point of seminars and conferences and masterminds, sitting in there with people who I know legitimately are making a lot of money. Some of them are making net 6 and 7 figures a month. And meanwhile, their life at home was a complete barn fire. And you know what the thing that they were most worried about? Getting an extra comma in their bank account, making an extra however many, hundreds or millions and put in their bank account. That's the thing they were most worried about. And the reason for that is because they never came up with a personal vision. And the danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And again, I'm not suggesting that that's irrelevant. It just can't come first. So I'm going to do one one more minute about personal vision. We'll put the fries in the bag and then we'll move on from personal vision. But it does not excuse you from putting together a personal vision. If you go into the school community, where I'll talk about the community here in a little bit at the end if you're interested, but this is something that we talk about all the time. This is something we talk about in the masterminds all the time. We have an in-person mastermind coming up in June in Clearwater. I think it's June 18th and 19th. And for those people who are there, the main circuit breaker that we keep coming back to is personal vision. And even though we might be talking mostly about business stuff, usually the question comes up is this in your personal vision to deal with this or have this issue? How is your business aligning with your personal vision? That's always a constant theme, because again, you can make a ton of money. This is not about playing small. It's about making sure that you're doing it for something more than money. So the personal vision here is you could come up with a 100th birthday speech, where the 100th birthday speech is you're turning 100 years old. Who would you have in the room? Who would you have in the room, and what would you say? And what would be the message that you would want for others to carry outside the room when you were done speaking? What are some things that you just look forward to, right? You don't even have to take the 100th birthday speech out of the equation. What are just some basic things that you look forward to? Or finally, what are just some things you've always wanted to try? What about those sorts of things? What would that look like for you? Now, for those of you who are like, man, 100th birthday speech, dude, I'm in my 20s. That's like, 75 years from now. I'm not even thinking that. Okay, fine. But if that's too far out for you, start thinking about a next milestone. Maybe when you're turning 40, or maybe when your kids are turning 18, or some other milestone. What would be the speech that you would say? Who would you want in the room? And what would you say? So let's put the fries in the bag on personal vision for now. Let's talk about business vision. So from here forward, we're going to be talking about business stuff, and specifically related to the things that you're going to put into your business plan. So let's start thinking strategically. So in order to think strategically, we have to think top down. In order to do that, you need to start defining the basic building blocks of your company. And this is the DNA of your company. And that DNA is defined by 3 C's. The 3 C's of business vision are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, client avatar. So this is, hang on one second, Marcus. I'm going to come back to that. So the anytime that I get hired as a strategist or as a fractional CSO is a chief strategic officer. Anytime I get brought into an organization acting in that role, I'm looking through this lens right here to see whatever dysfunction may reveal itself. And if they're telling me up front that, well, we've got problems with our staff, that there's lots of gossiping going on, they're just not getting along, they're not working together, there's lots of turnover with our staff, there's lots of attrition, there's lots of turnover with our customers, we're just not profitable, we're not keeping as much as we should, we're having trouble keeping or attracting the right customers. All of those things that I just mentioned are related to one of these 3 C's of business vision, and sometimes multiple things. So I'm just letting you know, you can spend time doing this or not spend time doing this. It does not affect me at all. But if you do this, it will absolutely change your life. So let's get into a little bit of this. I don't have time to unpack these really, really deep, but I'll give you a couple things just to kind of chew on. This is something you can get into much later, or much deeper if you prefer. If you want to buy the book, you can do that. But if you want to get into the training course on the school community, this is something that we spend a ton of time on, because the core purpose, core values, and client avatar, they have to be well defined. And there's just a constant honing and sharpening of the saw. So let's get into core purpose. Core purpose is specifically what business are you in, and specifically what problems do you solve. And it's really important that you be really specific, because if you're not specific in the core purpose, what happens is people start to get really confused about what it is that you do. Oftentimes, when I'm related to my core purpose specifically, and I start thinking about what it is that I actually do, and I always keep, or it's either on this desk or it's on my conference table, I keep my core purpose written down and very close to me. Why? Because I don't want to wander. I don't want to start thinking about things that I don't do. Because you want to think of yourself as, look at the framework of a mechanic. And a mechanic is, they do a certain amount of things. The mechanic will work on your passenger rated vehicle, and they will do things like replacing headlights. They will replace your tail lights. They will replace your brakes and your belts and do tune-ups and things like that. Will they work on your dump truck? No, they will not work on your dump truck. You know why? Because that's outside of the scope of what they do. So it's about being obnoxiously about what you are good at and kind of obnoxious about what you're not. Will they work on your lawnmower? No, because they probably couldn't charge enough to make that worth your while. Okay, fine. Would they work on my transmission? Probably not. Because transmissions are so specialized that they're probably going to refer that out to someone else. And many mechanics, they might rotate your tires, but they're probably not going to get you new tires because they have to have a pretty sizable inventory for that. So this is what I'm talking about when you're looking at different things. Like, it's really important. Yes, you can have a grouping of services, of products and services that are specific to your avatar, but draw that line in the sand. Specifically, when I'm looking at mine, like, I like to teach, I like to educate, and I keep this on a list. I teach, I educate, I train, I create courses, I write books, I have one-to-one sessions, I have group trainings. These are all the things around a specific avatar, around specific people that I like working with. Generally business owners, generally entrepreneurs. They tend to be married. They tend to be Christian, right? Not always, but I'm just saying these are the sorts of people that I tend to attract who I like working with. Okay. So, but you can't do that if you're wonky on your core purpose. So, Marcus has a question and thank you, because I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay. So, is having a personal vision intrinsically related to having a business vision? For example, if my ultimate goal is to say travel the world to visit cultures and study languages, would the business vision be related to that goal, or just be the power to get there? This is a fantastic question, and it is intrinsically related. The thing is, it can be missing, and if you don't have a personal vision, guess what becomes your personal vision? Your business vision. Your business vision becomes the personal vision. And that's how you create a life that exists to serve the business. So what I'm saying is, when you have that personal vision, everything should exist to serve that personal vision. It should exist to serve your relationship with your family and your friends and your relationship with your faith, or whatever is important to you. I don't really care what it's your vision. Don't have a vision just because you said I should have that. No, I'm not the one that's going to drive that. You should have that on your own. And if you have core values, which we're going to talk about core values here in a second, if you have core values that are in alignment with people in your world, then you can have a vision that aligns with those different things. So that's a fantastic question. And I'm going to talk about that here when we get to infrastructure. So just hang on to that. It'll make more sense here in just a little bit, Marcus, because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But vision does have to come first, and you're going to understand why when we get to infrastructure. Okay. Really, really good question. So thank you for thinking of that, because if you don't have that personal vision, the business vision becomes the surrogate. So when you're looking at core values is what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business? If you were no longer in business, how would the world be lesser for it? So, you're more than welcome, Marcus. So this is, when you're thinking about core values is, because your business is an extension of you. This is important for you to remember. Your business is just an extension of you. And because your business is an extension of you, all of the values that you bring to the business become the values of the company. And particularly the core values of the company are what tend to shine through. Why is that? Because we all walk around with a set of values. You walk around with a set of values like, I value Oreos. Okay? I value peanut M&Ms. I also value my family. Do I value those things equally? No. Am I going to go to war over peanut M&Ms? No. If someone breaks into my house and says, give me your peanut M&Ms, I'm going to give them and get rid of them. But if someone breaks in and wants to threaten my family, yeah, they're going to be met with war. Why is that? Because that's the line in the sand, how you know something is a value versus a core value. The line in the sand between a value and a core value is that if you're willing to act on it. That's the difference. If you're willing to get up off the couch and go do something because it's a core value, or because it means that much to you, chances are it's a core value. If you've ever had a friend, have any of you guys, Marcus, Aisha, Maria, have any of you ever had a friend that was heading down a path that you couldn't follow and you had to let that friendship die? Have you ever, maybe it was even a romantic interest where that person was starting to act in a way that you just were not okay with? And so much so that you were willing to sacrifice the relationship for it. Yeah, it sucks, right? But that's the nature. And sometimes it's yeah, exactly, Maria. And it sucks because sometimes it can be, thank you, Marcus. And it can be a, it could be a family member or whatever that is. And unfortunately, because that happens, because there was a violation of a core value. So then you just have to identify what the violation was. Maybe they were lying to you, they were dishonest, they were whatever, maybe they because you've got a strong sense of justice and they were doing something that was clearly wrong and you have a higher moral sense for justice and you're like, no, I can't do that, right? Whatever it is, you have to think of the opposite. So if they were violating the law and you're like, well, no, justice is important to me. Or if they were acting out of integrity, meaning that what they said and what they did were not in alignment. That's integrity, right? They were lying to you. That's honesty. Whatever that is, that's how you can start to define what that core value is. And that's how you're going to apply these things to your business. Why does this matter? Yeah, thank you, Aisha. Why does this matter? What does this have to do with business planning? It has everything to do with business planning because here's the reality. The core values are what determine the company culture, and the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. That's the deal. So if you're trying to build a business and you're really trying to build a world-class organization, you cannot do this without identifying the core values. And your business plan is absolutely the place where you identify the core values. And I'll tell you why. Because the minute you start bringing people into your organization, and I'm talking vendors, subcontractors, and employees, if you don't define your core values, they will be defined by the strongest personality in the room. And you better hope that it's always you that's in the room. That's the problem. So this is why you want to define those core values. The last piece of this, we talked core purpose, we talked core values. Now let's talk about client avatar. Client avatar specifically is who you want to work with. Ideally, who is that person or group of people or couple or whatever? Who are they? And I want you to think about it in terms of geographics, demographics, and psychographics. This gets right to the heart of the matter of your target audience. Who's the market you're going after? And define them geographically, demographically, and psychographically. So geographics is where they are, demographics is who they are, and psychographics is how they think and how they buy. So when you're starting when you're thinking like geographics is straightforward, demographics is like, are they married? Are they single? Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they have kids or no kids? Things like that. That's pretty straightforward. But the psychographics is a little bit trickier. In order to wind that and make a little bit more sense, when you're thinking about psychographics, you're thinking about ALIA, A-L-I-A. And that's their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. So once you understand their attitudes, what is their attitude towards your business? What's their attitude towards your industry? And if you can understand their attitude, like many people have a negative attitude towards attorneys, for example, right? Who's my attorney that was here? Was that you, Maria? I apologize. I can't remember. But if that was you, and if you understand the Aisha's saying, yes, sometimes your values just no longer align. Yeah. So Maria, right? So you're an attorney. There are many people who have a negative attitude towards attorneys. That would be important for you to know in advance, because in your marketing, you could say, hey, have you had a bad experience with an attorney? How about having a good experience with an attorney? If you have legal needs, why don't we talk? Right? Do you think that might resonate? That might get around that conversation because like, oh my gosh, like the minute you say, well, I'm an attorney, meanwhile, they go to their little file cabinet in their head and have all the negative thoughts, and they're going to apply that to you. And you're now paying for everyone else's past sins. Okay. So again, I want you to think about that. Maybe if you're a property manager or you're a landlord or whatever, what's the attitude that's going on in the mind of your avatar? What's the lifestyle that they live? Are they young and jet setting, or are they old and jet setting? Do they have grandkids? Like what's their lifestyle? What are their interests? Do they like baseball? Do they like American football? Do they like European football? Do they like NASCAR or Formula One? whatever. Once you understand their interests, again, you find a way to connect with them and you can find a way to have affinity with them. And the last piece is aspirations and goals. And when you really understand someone's goals, and if you can align your product or service with their aspirations and goals, it's like a license to print money. So all of these things are really critical to understand your target audience, specifically your client avatar. And this is going to help you much more when you're actually putting together the components inside a business plan. So the Viper framework isn't really something that you're going to use for a business plan per se. This is really about coming and setting it up strategically. But all these different elements you are going to apply to the business plan. You'll see it here. There's 9 different components to the business plan, and you'll see that here in a bit. So all of these things, the core purpose, the core values, and the client avatar, I'm just telling you, take the time, write these things down. And if you're not clear on them, you're not really sure how to do this, then let's you and I have a conversation. Maybe you need a little bit of coaching. Maybe you need a little bit of help with this. But if not, that's okay too. But the thing is, I would say from a perspective of from a 1 to a 10, for each one of these things, 1 to 10 on your core purpose, how clear are you? 1 being very low, 10 being I'm super clear. 1 to 10 on your core values, where are you at? 1 to 10 in your client avatar, where are you at? And I'm going to throw a little wrinkle in this one. If they're not written down, you cannot give yourself more than a 5. And I'm telling you, like, you have to have these things written down, because I will tell you that your mind will play tricks on you. And when you start writing, you're like, no, it's right up in here. Okay, great. You got it in your head, but then it starts to evolve and you have nothing else previous to compare it against. So that's why you got to be careful about relying on your memory. So this is once we got this clear for a specific client that I was working with, this guy, Aaron, he's a fractional CFO and he's holding his very first check. And once he defined his client avatar and he really started, he wasn't spending a lot of time on his core values, but he was getting there. But he really spent a lot of time on his core purpose, and he really spent a lot of time on his client avatar. And that check that he's holding was within 6 weeks after doing this, he got his first check. Let me zoom in on that check a little bit. He's holding a $50,000 check. That was their first payment to him. And they remained a customer for 12 months. So as a $50,000 buy-in to his retainer, and they were paying him $5,000 a month after that. So this is what I was talking about. Like, this is a very real world way of how this actually works. So we talked about vision. Now let's talk about infrastructure. So again, we talked about personal vision and business vision. Let's talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bones of the business. And this is the stuff that no one really wants to think about until they're sold on it. Okay. So, So Marcus is saying 1 out of 10, very unclear. On all 3, Marcus? Is that Aisha saying yes, sometimes your values no longer align. Yeah, and that sucks, and especially when this is one of the reasons why when I do work with business owners, especially business owners who are couples, I really do insist on working with both of them. Because number one, I don't want to keep secrets. I'm not going to keep secrets. If you got something to say to me, trust and know I'm going to say it to your spouse. We just need to figure out a way to say it. Right, if it's any sort of secret. So don't tell me something you don't want that person to know, because we'll figure it out. But I'm not going to go blabbing, but I'm just going to say, like, I'm not going to keep secrets from another. You're not going to play me against them, and we're not going to do that. So, but whenever I have worked with someone and I start to recognize that they are pulling away from their spouse in terms of emotional intelligence and the requisite variety of knowledge that they're gaining, and that's starting to leave them behind. So it's really important that you have all the stakeholders. And this happened, unfortunately, with a family. And I tried my best to warn them. There was one person who was continually working with me, and there was 2 others that were continually not showing up for the calls. And that's exactly what happened. That person grew so fast and so far in their requisite variety, their requisite knowledge. And unfortunately, that person is, I say unfortunately, but they're not getting along now. And that other person is significantly farther ahead in business than the other 2. So it's just unfortunate, but that's where it is. So, so Marcus is saying, personally, yes, all 3. I'm working avidly to figure the future out. Yep, perfectly. And this is a journey. This is a long journey. This is not just something you're going to figure out in an afternoon. Okay, so keep at it. My future in business and personal life identity. Yeah, good for you, man. Good for you. This is a journey, man. So, and this took me years to figure all this stuff out. And I'm in my mid-50s now. So the infrastructure is the bones of the business. And the bones of the business, when you're thinking about things like your desks and your chairs and your computers, software, things like that, your websites, your payment processing systems, things like that. And the infrastructure of your business is absolutely critical to the structure of your business. And many people don't think about infrastructure until they're like, oh, maybe we should buy this after the fact. You want to have this stuff planned in advance so you can be strategic. So when you're starting to think about, and you don't have to have all the infrastructure built out, you build your business like kind of like a Sudoku puzzle. But I want you to start thinking about these things now, because you're going to apply the infrastructure and processes. We'll talk about processes here in a second, but you want to start thinking about your infrastructure through the lens of the 4 core functions. Your lead generation, what kind of infrastructure are you going to need? What kind of software, what kind of desks, what kind of phone systems are you going to need for your lead generation? What kind of infrastructure are you going to need for your sales process? What are you going to need for fulfillment? What are you going to need for your accounting and your financing? And maybe there are enterprise solutions that go across all 4. That's great. For smaller organizations, that doesn't always happen. But this is an absolutely critical component to your business. So you're saying, well, Mark, if infrastructure is so important, and really this is all about business, right? The Viper framework really is about business. It is. Then why does vision come first? I'm glad you asked, and I'll be happy to tell you. So remember when Marcus was asking earlier, like he's got this personal vision and this business vision, okay? Well, let's pretend that Marcus, let's say he's got a personal vision where he wants to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on his belly. Fine vision. If he builds an infrastructure that's going to require him to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience for him when he's trying to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on his belly. Okay? So the vision has to come first, because you're going to build an infrastructure that stays in alignment with your vision for the future. Make sense? So that's why all of this is coming in this particular order. So when you're looking at the Viper framework, and Marcus, I hope that made more sense for you. So when you're looking at the Viper framework, you're looking at vision, you're looking at infrastructure, next is process. Process is simply how you do things. And it's from the perspective, from a tactical perspective and from a strategic perspective. Let's look at tactical first. Tactical is basically how you do things from a day-to-day perspective. It's your standard operating procedures. It's your checklist items. It's basically how you do things from day to day. So that is from your day-to-day activities. You're looking at things like, okay, your opening procedures, your closing procedures, different things related to bank, how you answer the phone, how you prepare bank deposits, all of the day-to-day stuff that you're doing over and over again. That is your tactical process. And that's going to be something that many people don't take the time to identify that stuff in a business plan, but it is important for you to start thinking of the bigger things now, about what that will look like now, because that's going to be more part of your operations manual, part of your standard operating procedures, not necessarily in a business plan, but it is worthy of you building that out now. And I want you to start thinking about that now, because again, the business plan is going to be somewhat limited. It's not going to get that granular, nor should it. You don't want to hand someone a 310-page business plan unless the thing is really requires it to be a 310-page business plan. I doubt that. So even the most sophisticated businesses probably need to be significantly less. But what I am saying is, if you take the infrastructure and the tactical part of process and you draw a box around that, that is your system. That's the systems component of your business. And in effect, what you did was you built a battleship. You built this warship that's sitting in the harbor. Now, here's the thing. You don't want just that battleship just to sit in the harbor, right? You don't want it just moored against the harbor and then get battered around by whatever economic winds happen to be blowing through at the time, right? No, you want to be strategic with that battleship. You want to take that battleship out of the harbor and you want to go make trouble, right? Go and drive that thing towards a strategic direction. That's why strategic planning is so important. So when you start thinking of not just the tactical part of process, but the strategic planning part of process, this is where we're driving the company in a very strategic direction. This is the crux of what you're going to be doing in the strategic business plan. So when you're thinking about this, you have to think about it in 3 ways. I want you to think of the people, I want you to think of the purpose, and I want you to think of promotion. The people side of strategic planning is about who it is you're going to need. There's an internal component and there's an external component. Let's talk about the external first. The external component, those would be the people that you're trying to attract to your business. Now that could be not just clients, right? Because that would make sense. So maybe you're trying to launch a new product or service, or maybe you're trying to expand market share, or whatever it is that comes into the purpose, right? We'll talk about that here in a second. But when whoever those people are that you're trying to attract, it would be really important that you identify them. Okay. What does that sound like? It sounds like the client avatar that we discussed in the 3 C's of business vision, right? You see how this is starting to all come together? So you really want to have that external people component figured out. You also want to make sure that the people that are coming are aligned with your core values. These are people you're going to want to work with. And you're also going to be attracting, maybe you need to attract people to come work for you. Maybe you're trying to attract talent. So that is what you need to think about in the people side of the business. The internal side of the people is who are you going to need internally? Are you going to need to shift job roles around? Are you going to need to have conversations with your suppliers, with your vendors, whatever? These are so the people side of the component, you need to think about who you're going to need. And are these people, do they have skill sets that are outside of what you currently know? So let's put that behind us for people. Let's talk about purpose. When you're talking about purpose, your strategic purpose needs to be in alignment with your core purpose. Again, the 3 C's of business vision. And the reason why is because your strategic purpose may only represent a portion of the core purpose. So you might say, well, I really want to expand market share, or I really want to launch a new product or a new service, or maybe vertically integrate into an existing market. That's the core. That's the strategic purpose aligning with the core purpose. And when the strategic purpose does not align with the core purpose, it gets very confusing. It gets confusing for your avatar. It gets confusing for the people inside your organization. It gets confusing altogether. And that would be like when the strategic purpose doesn't align with the core purpose. That would be like if Starbucks started selling chainsaws. It doesn't make any sense. So that's when you start to align that strategic purpose and say, okay, well, that's going to prevent, again, I know what you're like, my fellow brothers and sisters of entrepreneurship. Every time you get out of the shower, you've got a new business idea and you want to do something different. So this is where this is going to help keep you from chasing all these shiny objects, the shiny object syndrome, where you're chasing too many rabbits and you don't end up catching any. So this is why you have to think about core purpose being aligned with strategic purpose. The last part of this is promotion. Promotion is just really, it's about communicating, but communicating and doing it a lot. Okay. So promotion is about telling your avatar, doing a lot of networking, do a lot of promoting, do a lot of marketing, do a lot of advertising, whatever that is. And it's continual. You have to do it a lot. And again, I have literally done 100, and I think at the last count, I've done 110 webinars over the last year. And guess what? There are still new people that are coming to me that have never heard this message before. And if you can check in Eventbrite and say, oh my gosh, he really has done 110. Yeah, I've done 110. And I have no intention of slowing down because there's so many other people that need this methodology because they've been sold on other frameworks that are just not helpful for what they need. So promotion is usually, you're going to be doing a lot more promotion. You're going to be so sick of your message long before your avatar ever even hears the message for the first time. So what about internal promotion? Yeah, you need to say the same thing over and over and over to your internal constituents with having regular meetings and making sure that you're not, you as the organizational head or the department head are not wandering in your message, but you're telling them the same message over and over and over, encouraging them, being a leader to them. We're going to talk about that in psychology here in a second. So that is the process. That is tactical process, and that is strategic process. So before we get to execution, Marcus has something else here. Good questions, Marcus, by the way. Thank you. So Marcus saying, understood. So It is the business that provides the ability / power to enable your lifestyle by design. That's exactly it. This is lifestyle by design. And you're creating that business and you're reverse engineering that business to deliver that life for you. I have exited businesses that no longer served my personal vision. And you know what? And people in my town were like, oh yeah, they're going out of business. You know what? I'm not going out of business on that. I'm winding that business down because I don't want to be in it anymore. I don't enjoy it. And because I had to be so on top of it to just do it remotely well, I was like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. And there was other businesses that were SaaS businesses, software as a service, that did not align with my personal vision. So I exited those. So I'm just saying, when you have those things and you start recognizing what your real skill set is, what your core values really are, and the things that you're willing to do and the things that you're willing not to do, then you can really have a pretty amazing life. And I'm just telling you, this is how I live my life now. So the execution component, most plans fall apart in their execution. And this is why when General Patton, he recognized a good plan finally executed now is better than the perfect plan executed next week. He understood the value of executing well because, again, he recognizes that most plans fall apart in their execution. And the problem with that when it comes to the business context is that business owners, and this is particularly a problem I see among business owners and entrepreneurs who have all these different ideas, they have these to-do lists that are like 100 items long, right? Ask me how I know. Because when you've got too many priorities on your to-do list, it has the same effect as having no priorities. Let me say that one more time. Having too many priorities has the same impact as having none. And the reason it's just you're splitting your attention in too many different ways. That's why I refer to something as a daily 5 when it comes to my execution. The daily 5 is up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take, which is going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan. One of the two. So again, not multiples of 5, okay, but up to 5. And I will tell you, for me, it's 3. When I have 3 things on my calendar that I know that are going to be the needle moving activities, and they're really highly specific, that are going to be the needle moving activities, I'm not talking like check voicemail. That's a to-do list item. That's not a daily 5 item. When I'm talking, so this right here, this webinar, this is a daily 5 item. Again, for me, 3 is good, but I will on occasion expand that to 5. But I can't do 5 every day. 3 I can do every day. I can't do 5 every day. The pace is just too much. So what I'm saying is, whatever those needle moving activities are for you, that's where you have to have the daily 5. And really, they better be needle moving activities towards whatever it is your strategic plan or your vision. So the last component to the Viper framework is reporting. And this is a reporting function that you need to have. This is something that's identified within this strategic business plan when it refers to milestones. And the milestones are generally the mile markers that you're like the measurements that you're going to hit along the way. So these are, when I refer to these in reporting, these are the lead metrics and the lag metrics. The lead metrics, they're not about like marketing leads. These are about they just precede the results. That's why they're called lead metrics. The lead metrics are based on the actions and activities. That's it. What did you do? What actions are you specifically taking? So that's the actions and activities. You're going to measure those things. How many calls did you make? How many cold emails did you send? How many times did you pick up the phone and try to book an appointment? Now, the lag metrics, you have actually very little to any control over those at all. You don't have any control directly over the results. You have indirect control, but you don't have any direct control over the results because you may be picking up the phone and be very ineffective. You might be saying the wrong things. You might be doing the wrong things. It might be a wrong channel altogether. So if you're not getting the results you want, all you have to do is look at the actions and activities. And if you're doing enough of those actions and activities in a very repetitious way, and you know that you're doing this one thing, and then you change one variable, okay, now I can start doing it slightly different and seeing what my results are going to be like that. But if you're doing random acts of marketing and you're like, yeah, but I'm doing all this different stuff, again, you're not being strategic about this. You're not being scientific about this. You have to think about the actions and activities you're doing specifically so they're measurable, so that you can check them against your lag metrics, your results. Okay? So it's really just as simple as that. So that is the Viper framework: vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. All of this, you can take the information you get from this, that from the research that you've done, and you can plug that directly in to the strategic business plan template at the end. So most of this stuff, everything here that I talk about in the community at school.com/strategic boardroom. I'll show you more about that at the end, but I know some of you were right at the top of the hour, so some of you might have to hop off. But if you are going to stick around, I'll probably got about another 15 or so minutes left on this. So if you can stick around, I'm going to get to the rest of this, which is about the psychology of the business. We talked about the systems. Now let's talk about the psychology. So again, when we're referencing the psychology side of the business, look, the truth is this: the systems are important, but systems will only get you so far. They are important for stability. Systems are necessary for consistency, and they're also helpful for holding people accountable because they're systemic. They're going to produce the same thing over and over and over. That's the power of a system. However, systems are limited because they're not great at making subjective decisions. Okay, they're operating on an algorithm, or adapting to rapid market changes, or coming up with creative solutions. They're not really great at that, and even initiating or maintaining human connections. Human connections is the key. I hear people, oh, but AI. Really? Really? Do you love talking to an AI when someone sends you a call? Or do you really love talking to a human? It's the human connection that's never going to be set aside. It's just not how we're wired. So when it comes to psychology, we're looking at from both a personal and individual psychology perspective, as well as a business and organizational psychology perspective. So from the personal and individual side, you're looking at things like self-worth and self-management and limiting beliefs. When you're looking at things like business, there's an external component and there's an internal component. Let me unpack a little bit around personal psychology, and then we'll get to the business psychology here for just a second. So these are all things, again, like I said, around personal, there's self-worth, limiting beliefs, these even things around emotional intelligence. All of these things are related and directly correlated to self-sabotaging behaviors that I see business owners engage in all the time. So let me ask you if any of these things individually sound familiar. Procrastination. Does that sound familiar? How about seeking perfection? That, once this thing is completely done perfectly, then I'll launch it. That was my life story when I was publishing my first book. That was driving me absolutely bananas. Or doing the absolutely unnecessary versus the important, right? Let me organize my paper clips before I make those sales calls. Hiding in activity where you're just burying yourself in busy work, but not really the important work, or hiding in inactivity where you have so many things to do, you don't even know what to start on first. How about lying to yourself because the truth just isn't good enough, or you can't face the truth, or setting impossible standards like, once I make, $500,000 a year, then I can retire. Meanwhile, you've never made more than $70,000 in a year. And by the way, all of these things that I'm mentioning, this is not judgment. This is confession. These are things that I'm either actively still struggling with or have struggled with to a much greater degree. I've set a lot of them aside. I would say a lot of these are definitely more blunted than they were. But I might be done with it, but it's not done with me. So you have to recognize these are things that you constantly need to be vigilant for and working on. How about these things? Not finishing things. Have you started things and not finished things? That was the nature of my life until I actually started to recognize how to finish a book. Just reading a book. And last year I read 42. The year before that I read 41. So how many times have you started something and not finished it? Or allowing distractions to occur in your life, or accepting lower standards in your life, letting people treat you badly, not rewarding yourself, or not having downtime, or having a fear of failure or fear of success. Let's pull over and park here and talk about that one for a second. Fear of failure is really more tied to a fear of ridicule, if you think about it. Fear of, I'm going to look silly if I do this thing and fail. Man, who cares? Who cares? Would you rather stay mediocre? or a fear of success where it's much easier to never have something than to have it and lose it. I dragged that around for years around my neck like a millstone. How about false arrogance? Everything's great. No, dude, everything's not great. Like, you're literally not facing reality. Or rescuing other people. How about this one? Why would I rescue other people? Oh, you're a mess? Let me come fix you. Because when I'm fixing that other person, who am I not fixing? Not fixing what's going on in my own head trash. Or nitpicking and picking fights, complaining, thinking that I've arrived. Oh, thank God I don't have to read any more books. I've arrived. I know everything I need to know. Gossiping or comparing, tearing yourself down, not taking ownership of things, being consistently late, having a horrible relationship with time, flying by the seat of your pants, not following through on commitments, having a bad relationship with money, and about 12,000 other things that I could put up on the screen. But for the sake of time, let's just say that there's a lot of things that we carry around in our businesses. And all of this stuff disrupts your ability to grow, scale, or expand your business. And I'm just bringing this up now because you can have the most amazing plan, but if you're running a bad program up here, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to execute. You're going to find ways to get back to stasis. The minute you surge up, it's like, oh man, why can't I ever seem to break through? Why can't I ever? Because you're running on a faulty program. So I'm not saying that you can't change that. You absolutely can change that with some training. This is some of the stuff that we work through in Strategic Boardroom. I'm just letting you know, this is the sort of stuff that you have to think about before you start to execute on your business plan. Best thing I can offer you right now is take 100% ownership, because if you don't see yourself as part of the problem, there is absolutely no way in the world you can see yourself as part of the solution. So I just want to make sure that you're introduced to this now, because if you don't address that, you can have the most amazing plan, but again, it's going to revert to the mean. It's going to regress back to the mean. So in terms of business psychology, we're looking at external psychology and internal psychology. External psychology is things like buying psychology, vendor psychology, and even things related to politics. And if you might be thinking like, well, I'm not really a political person, I don't really know. I promise you, if you have a business of any size, the politicians will find you. It's just the nature of who they are. They're going to be looking for campaign donations, or where I'm at, this is my office. Like, I don't have an office in my home. This is like my office building. And I'm on one of the busiest streets in my town. And guess, right around September, October, guess what they want? Yep, they want to put signs in my yard. And I have never allowed that, because the minute I put one, man, they're like dandelions. And the next thing I know, I've got a zillion of them. So I've never gone down that path, but I'm just saying that's what's going to start to attract when you start getting success in your business. The internal psychology is both related to management and leadership. I do want to specifically take a few minutes on leadership, because again, I would argue that it's really important for you to address leadership. There's really not a spot in most traditional business plans to put leadership. However, I do think it's really smart to address how you're going to lead this organization. And the way that you lead this organization, I'm telling you, like I mentioned earlier, I'm in a PhD program right now for organizational psychology. It talks a lot about change management. It talks a lot about leadership, and everything that I have looked at, all the lenses that I have looked through is basically related to these three things: trust, vision, and communication. The truth is this: you have to know how to create trust with people, because if they don't trust you, it doesn't matter that you might have a really cool vision and one that's been shared with them. It won't matter that you're an amazing communicator and that you speak eloquently and you do all the right things when it comes to communication. If they don't trust you, you are not going to be effective as a strategic leader. You just won't. You just won't. When it comes to vision, let's say that they do trust you. Let's say that you spend a lot of time bringing them into conversations and really developing and creating trust with them. And there's 7 elements of trust around character and competence and caring and communication, consistency, and communication, or I think I skipped one. No, communication. Yeah, it's communication. Communication, commitment. Commitment was the one I skipped. So my point is that those 7 elements of trust are so critical, because once you create a trust with them, that's great. But if you don't have a vision that you have shared with them and they have felt like there's some buy-in, that there's some input to that vision, and you've asked them their opinion on that vision and it's a shared vision, most people are much more inclined to carry a ball that they helped inflate. But if you brought the vision down like you're Moses and just laid it in front of them and they have had no input, again, you're not going to be effective as a leader. And you may not even know why. But let's say that, again, you do have their trust and you do have a shared vision, but you're a horrible communicator. And you basically type back to everybody in all caps, or you send one-word replies in your emails, or you don't communicate often enough, or you treat communication like a megaphone and not a telephone. That's a problem. Again, you're ineffective in your communication. You're not going to be effective as a leader. So you might be thinking, does leadership really matter that much? Absolutely it does. And I'm going to show you why. The leadership, I'm writing my 9th book. It's called Leader Boss. And Leader Boss brings together these two ideas of compassion and candor. Compassion is when you really care about someone and you really do have compassion for where they're at. But compassion also gets, when there's too much compassion and not enough candor, when you're saying like, oh my gosh, I really care for this person. I really, my heart hurts for that person, but you're not being honest with them. You're not bringing enough candor to the conversation. You're not telling them the things that they actually need to know. That's when a boss gets walked all over. That's when people say, oh, I'm too nice. Okay, yeah, you're too nice, because when you're too nice, what ends up happening is people walk all over you. That's when you have too much compassion and not enough candor. However, let's say that you have too much candor and not enough compassion. That's when they're going to say, have you ever heard the phrase like people don't care what you know until they know how much you care? That's very true. They need to have some sense that you have some compassion for them. But if they feel like all you are is just bottom line and you become very legalistic, like, oh, you got to follow the policies or you're going to get written up, dude, they are going to do exactly what you want them to do and not one thing more. Don't ask them to show up early. Don't ask them to show up late. I mean, that's just the way it is. And that is because you have too much candor and not enough compassion. So I would say that it takes equal amounts of both. You have to have equal amounts of compassion and candor so that when they're showing up in a way that's not conducive to the environment or the vision of the company, you have to be able to say, hey, look, man, I like you as a person, but this behavior can't fly. All right. So that's the main premise of Leader Boss. So level 5 leader companies, level 5 leaders were defined by Jim Collins, and John Maxwell defined a level 5 leader slightly differently. But the point of both of those descriptions of a level 5 leader, they define these people. Jim Collins was the author of Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last. He's written a bunch of books. John Maxwell's written all the books, literally hundreds, probably more than 100 at this point. But when they refer to level 5 leaders, they're talking about people who are putting the organization first. So these companies, these leaders represent companies that are significantly more profitable. They grew much faster than their industry counterparts. They had a very strong company culture, and wouldn't you know it, they had a defined set of core values. How about that? Like a bad frickin' penny, right? So that bad frickin' penny keeps showing up. Yeah, so here's what I'm saying is that when you're looking at these different companies, okay, the Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, and Southwest, these are the types of companies that had really rock star leaders. And these were companies that had multiples of, now I'm not saying, so if you put in $1,000 in the overall stock market and $1,000 in Amgen or $1,000 in Microsoft, you earned 56 times more than your returns in the stock market. That's what I'm talking about. And that's by having a level 5 leader. So I'm just letting you know, leadership also, because they've got the really good leaders, the 100 best places to work list frequently represents the highest stock returns. And that's because they've got good leadership. So leadership does make a huge difference. And that's because growth necessitates change. And leadership is what manages that change. And then remember, the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. A team cannot outpace the leader. So if you're making decisions and it takes you forever to make decisions, you have to recognize that you're the bottleneck in the company. And If you're trying to grow and you're trying to grow quickly, then you may have to step out of the way and let someone else lead it. Because that's why many times the founder of the company sometimes has to step aside and put someone else in place because they don't make decisions fast enough, and they recognize that as a weakness of the company, and they're going to put the company first. So this is something that I worked with. This is a couple that I worked with, Brian and Kara. Brian lives here in Indiana, and he's got a string of coffee shops, and I give Brian a ton of credit because not only has he become a better leader in his organization with his coffee shops, and it's expanded significantly. I think he's got 5 locations now, but he's also grown his real estate portfolio. He's had a lot of success, but they spent a lot of time working on not just about the systems of their businesses. He had a pretty good system, but he's also really started paying attention to the leadership within his businesses so he doesn't have to run them all the time. And he's got a really good leader that's running the show now. So that is the system side of the business. That's the psychology side of the business. Now let's talk about the 4 core functions. The 4 core functions have to be true in every single business. And these 4 core functions are as follows. They're around lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your company happens in that order. First lead gen, then sales, then operations, then accounting. And they experience them in a very real way. So when you're thinking about your lead generation, you really have to be really clear about what you're wanting to develop in your lead generation, because this is where you're starting to target your client avatar. And if you have not taken the time to define them and you don't know where they exist in the world geographically or technographically, are they online? Are they not online? Where are these people? And what are their demographics? Are they old? Are they young? Are they married? Are they not married? Are they what's the deal? Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Do they have teenagers or they have toddlers? So sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. But the difference of targeting that client avatar, that's when you know exactly who you want to work with, and it's much easier for you to direct your marketing to. And by the way, these are people that generally going to bring the most amount of money and bring you the least amount of headaches. And I don't know about you, I don't like headaches. So this is where, when you start to recognize, and this is 15 reasons why people will buy, and you start to think about the client avatar that you want. So, hey there, Carla V. Good to see you. Or Carter. I'm sorry, Carter V. Good to see you. I thought that's who you are. Okay, so what I would recommend for you guys and gals is take these 15 reasons why people buy. You can take a screenshot of this, or you can do whatever you want to do with this. Write this down real quick. But I want you to take these 15 reasons, and I want you to think about how all the different ways how you help your prospect make money or save time, avoid effort, escape pain, which is physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. How do you give them more comfort or better health? And keep in mind, that could also be in the form of less stress, or feel more love, or gain praise, or increase their status with their tribe. How do you bring truth to them, especially if they have felt lied to in the past? Or how you help them growth in their knowledge, growth in their faith, growth in their wellness. Is what you're bringing to them new? Is it novel? Or how do you help them feel more in control or more certain? And how can you help them be in contribution to others? So this is what I'm saying. So what I want you to do is I want you to take and put this into play, where you're saying, okay, so let's make money. What are all the ways, directly and indirectly, that you help people make money? How do you help people make money? Carter, I'm gonna talk about that here in just a hot second. So how you can communicate with me. So, but I want you to think about all the ways that you help people directly or indirectly make money. Directly or indirectly is the key, and come up with 10 different reasons. Come up with 10 different reasons for all of them, of how you directly or indirectly help them save money, or how you directly or indirectly help them save time, avoid effort, escaping pain. Okay? And now, if you did 10 for each one of these, now you've got 150 different ways that you can help your client avatar. That's really powerful. And now, again, do you think you can apply that towards that Aaliyah, towards their attitudes, or towards their aspirations and goals? Absolutely. This is why it's so incredibly important. And the lead generation function, I'm telling you, you cannot get lax on this, because everything that you do in your organization needs to support the lead generation function. Because the truth is, you can have the most amazing business. You can have the most amazing product or service. You can have the best, most efficient business. You can be an absolute paragon of truth and justice and virtue. Your sales technique so dialed in that you could sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. That's the truth. So you can never, ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead gen. So the different lead generation activities, when you're looking, especially if you're looking to grow, you need to be spending probably 60 to 70% of your total time in lead generation activities. And that's just not your time. I'm talking about the organization's time. And that's a hard metric to hit. But I'm telling you, if you can do this, you will be on a growth. I mean, you will grow much faster than you would ever expect it. But you've got to be directive towards your lead generation activities. So once you're in your lead generation function, that attracts the client avatar. Now the sales conversation, it just continues the conversation that's been started by the lead generation function. And most effective sellers understand that effective selling isn't about holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. It's about finding effective solutions. So then these people, once they've been closed, then they get handed over to fulfillment and the operational function. Now, generally, with most business owners, if you're going to get stuck, you generally get stuck in the operational function. And that's where you get stuck doing the websites or the whatever business that you happen to be in, whatever the core purpose generally is. And the last function is if you are going to ignore something, generally you're going to ignore the accounting. And it usually sounds something like this. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. Okay? And I have an accounting degree, by the way, and I have said those words. I am the least qualified person to do my own books. Not that I'm least qualified. I'm least qualified because I know I won't do them. I would have to fire myself after the first day. So, in that same vein, let me ask you, are all these things the same skill set? No, clearly they're not the same skill set. That's the issue. So when you are bringing people into your organization, guess what I want you to think about when you're bringing people in your organization? That's right, your core values. These core values, again, are going to be people that align with how you are going to do business, what matters to you about this business, and again, the lines in the sand that are almost the fireable offenses if they violate them. Like I said earlier, the core values are what define the company culture, and the company culture and the brand are inextricably linked. So when you're bringing in not just people from an employee perspective, but you're also bringing in those customers that all are in alignment with those core values. And the nice thing about core values too is they create a sense of unity, and the vision that you've created will thrive in that environment. So the business plan, that is everything I have. So for those of you are, let's see, Carter says sales, strategic solutions, and positioning. Oh, is that what you do? Okay, perfect. Excellent. So the business plan here, well, I'm going to show you guys here really quick about how you can get a copy of your business plan. Again, you can just go to my website and download it. You don't have to enter in any email or anything like that. But the 9 components of the business plan itself are going to be related to industry, product or service, your target market, which is kind of related to the client avatar that we talked about, then we're going to be talking about demographics, the market size, the competition within the market, and then the marketing strategy, how are you going to actually reach those people, critical risks, your SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And sometimes it's a little bit tricky to do on your own. Sometimes you really do need someone's help. So if you have someone to help you, definitely get them to help you. If you would like my help on that, let me know. I can certainly talk with you about that. The financial side of the business plan, and also the metrics and milestones, which is the R in the Viper framework. Okay. So again, all of these different areas that we just talked about in this 9 functions is everything we talked about with either within Viper, the Viper framework, vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting, or the 4 core functions of business: lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And again, and even through the leadership model of trust, vision, and communication. So it really hits all different areas. So if you'd like to get a copy of the business plan, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to walk you through it a couple different times because I know people are like, wait a minute, I missed that. Do it again. So you're going to go to strategicboardroom.com. Relax. I'm going to do this twice so you can see it. You're going to go to this is the page. The menu is a little different, but basically the courses and logins is still up there on the right hand side. So you'll see it up there on the top for courses and logins. You'll click on that. you're going to scroll down until you see the free courses and downloads, and then you will select the free 9-step business plan template. Okay, so let me bring that all the way back. So you're going to go to strategicboardroom.com. You'll open up the page. You'll see courses and logins at the top. You scroll down a little bit. You'll get to the free 9-step business plan template. Okay, so that is everything there. Let's see. Marcus has a question. Get myself down there. All right. Marcus, this has been the most beneficial event I have had the pleasure of being a part of. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much for your contribution to myself and this community of dreamers and entrepreneurs. Thank you much for your time, Mark, and continued passion, and congratulations to make the efforts to create your ideal lifestyle. I'm rooting for you and your family. Marcus, thank you so very much. That means a tremendous amount to me. But here's the thing. I'm glad that it's been beneficial, but and I don't work for applause. I want to know that your life is better. I want to know that you're the one that's going to be changed by this. So I want to know what you're going to do. We'll be keeping in touch. You're going to be hearing from me. We're going to be emailing. Okay. So keep an eye out for emails that come with strategicboardroom.com at the end. But I'm just letting you know, I love that this has been helpful for you, but I just want to let you know, I want to know what you're going to do. Like, what are the specific actions that you're going to be taking? Because again, I'm glad this was helpful and beneficial for you, but I want to know that you're actually taking action on them. If you are someone who is interested in having someone help hold you accountable to taking action, and you'd like to be part of a community, I'm just letting you know, I do have a community. It's school.com/strategic boardroom. I will go ahead and put the link in the chat as well. So that way you can just click on that if you'd like. I've got several different levels that you can join. Just depends on really what it is that you're wanting. If you're wanting individual one-to-one coaching from me, if you're wanting just be part of the community, and where again we'll be on lots of different group calls. But if you're interested, just go to that and select whatever is most beneficial for you, what's most appropriate for you based on how quickly you want to go, what your budget is, and so forth. Right now, I'm just letting you know, I've only been in the school community for a couple of months, so I'm taking all the time to actually reshoot all of my videos and put them into and making them very specific to this community. So this is all very new and updated content that's in there. So just letting you know, it's not completely built out yet, and the pricing reflects that. So I'm just letting you know, if you're thinking, okay, pricing looks a little wonky. Yeah, it's not that it's wonky. It's just that I priced it low right now for people who actually do want to come in. So I'm just letting you know, if you come in, if you come back to this in a month's time, or maybe even less, and the pricing is different, I'm just letting you know why. So you might want to take advantage of that now. So once you're in at whatever price level, it will not change on you. You are more than welcome, Marcus. Excellent. Thank you. You'll be in touch. Fantastic. Aisha, I'm glad that this was helpful for you guys. So this is everything that I have, guys. Thanks so very much. Really quick, I just want to let you know, in terms of the strategic boardroom, there is group trainings every single week, several times a week, actually. There's classroom video sessions, there's one-to-one strategy sessions, and I also offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. I meant to put that up earlier. I forgot that I put the slide in there, so there it is. For those of you who are over $500,000 in sales and you'd like to say, hey, what is it like to work with me directly? If you go to my website, again, it's strategicboardroom.com, and right up at the very top on the very right-hand side is schedule a call. You and I can schedule a call. It'll be a quick 15-minute call. It's not a sales call. It's just really to kind of understand where you're at and what direction you want to go in, and we could see if we're a good fit for one another before we actually, have you spend a bunch of money and it's not necessarily what you're wanting. So let's see. Maria, you're going to be, so it's going to be strategic. It'll be events@strategicboardroom.com. So you'll be getting that email. You'll be getting a link back to that. But again, if you'd like to schedule a session, if you're over $500,000 in sales, otherwise I'm going to be sending that to you here in just a little bit. So it'll be events@strategicboardroom.com. I can go ahead and put that in there for you. So events. Sorry, this is. I think that's right. Sorry, nope, I misspelled it. Yeah, sorry. It is. No, I think that's right. So, me see there. Events at strategic. No, strategic. Don't type that one. That one will not work. Sorry. It's events at strategicboardroom.com. I can't, the font is so small and I don't have my glasses on. And I am in full denial that I actually need glasses, but my 54-year-old eyeballs, almost 54-year-old eyeballs, are not quite working as well. But that's the point. Yep. There it is. Marcus is helping me out with the assist. Thank you. That's it. So we'll have, there you go. Everybody's got it now. All right. So probably going to be getting a bunch of emails from Russian brides or whatever those spam bots are. Okay, so that's everything I have. All right, everybody, thanks so much for hanging around today, and I will see you guys in the boardroom. Take good care. We'll see you next time.